When it comes to being successful in photography, there are many routes that you can take. But there's one thing all those routes have in common: how you get there. Let me show you what I mean. So at this point, you're probably expecting me to say that we live in the day and age where everybody wants everything right now, you know, with next day delivery and stuff. But I know that you're not stupid. You already know that. The reason you clicked on this video is because you want to know how you can gain success and probably how to speed it up. You know it's not going to happen overnight. The vast majority of people don't need to be told that. Success comes with time. But what can you do to decrease that time? Well, in order to explain this, I want to talk a little bit about my own experience, particularly in the past year, when it comes to being successful in photography. Because when it comes to success, it depends how you frame it. Obviously, some people see monetary success as their goal. Some people see having their work featured in some magazine or in some display. But for a lot of us, the idea of being successful is feeling like we've actually become a good photographer. Honestly, where conditions are like this, it does feel like photography always becomes too easy. So I've been doing a lot of self-reflection on my own photography recently because a month or so ago, I had a really bad bout of imposter syndrome, as every photographer will experience at some point in their lives, probably at several points over your photography journey. So I decided to really take a look at what I've accomplished in the last year when it comes to photography and see if it's made me successful. And if it has, what is it that I've done to make sure I've reached it so that you can copy me? When it comes to this particular year of photography that I've just done, I feel like it's the year that I've progressed most as a photographer. As almost everybody knows, when you're making progress in whatever skill you're learning, you will eventually reach a plateau in how you feel that you're progressing. You know, there's this really steep curve where you're learning everything really quickly, and then all of a sudden it tapers off and you feel like you're making no progress. And that's common for everybody. Before this last year, I felt like I was on that plateau for a long time when it came to my photography. I'd reached this point and I didn't feel like I was getting any better. So I changed a few things round and put a few things into practice. And I really feel like this year has been the year I have progressed the most as a photographer from any point in my photography journey. And here's a few things I changed and implemented that meant I could do that so that you can copy me. Over this last year, I have taken literally tens of thousands of photos. No exaggeration, there has been an unbelievable amount of photos that I've taken, the vast majority of which you haven't seen. 99% of my photos are utter garbage. You see, the process of getting good photos is a lot about what you know, but there's an awful lot of trial and error as well. Over the last year, I've really tried to implement taking photos, even if I really don't want to, if you know what I mean. So if I see something I think, is that really going to be a good photo? I've made myself take the photo anyway. Generally, I'm right, it's not a very good photo. But that process of thinking in that way really made me hone down on what works for me as a photographer. It made me realize what I need to do to get those really good photos and what I maybe need to cut out from my photos as well. And that leads me on to the next point. One thing I've done this year is really concentrate on what I cut out of my photos. Now, this advice is probably as old as photography itself, but a good image is as much about what you strip away from it as what you include in the image. And frankly, before this last year, that's something I never really tried to implement much. Yes, I could take a simple image, but I didn't really concentrate on what I was cutting out. This year, when I've been thinking about my compositions or what I want to take a picture of, I've really thought about just making my subject, the main character, pop and how I can really strip back in terms of simplicity.
Like a microwave corpse this morning.
And this idea of simplicity is something I've tried to implement, just not just in my photography, but in like the gear I take, the locations that I go, keeping it as simple as possible. Art is one of those funny things where overthinking it can be really detrimental to your results. And that's true of most art forms. You can really tell when an artist is trying too hard. And several times over my photography journey, that's certainly been true of me. I have tried too hard to make an image work or to find a location that I think, yes, this will be perfect. Whereas what I found has really helped me to progress a lot more and find success as a photographer is just keeping it as simple as possible. Go somewhere with the idea of taking good photos, and that's it. Another thing I've tried to implement is the sort of stuff that I consume as a photographer for inspiration. Now, like many of you, I've done a lot of watching of tutorials and that sort of stuff on YouTube over the last few years. But there comes a point where that's no longer inspirational. And what is inspirational is seeing good examples of other people's work and thinking how I can implement that in my own photography and how I can adapt it as well. Because success isn't found in just copying somebody else. That's a trap that a lot of people fall into. And as a beginner, it can be quite effective. If you try and copy somebody else, then adopting their style can really help you to feel like you're progressing quickly. But developing your own style is vitally important as well, because that's where a great deal of your feelings of success come from, where you feel like you've achieved those photos rather than feeling like you've just copied somebody else to get those photos. Don't underestimate the sense of self-confidence that it'll give you when you do eventually develop your own style. Now, it's worth mentioning here that don't rush your own style. I promise you that your own style will come when it's ready. Just try experimenting with a few different things, and before you know it, you'll know what you like, and then that will become your style. And when it comes to consuming sort of how-tos and tutorials, they are very important because you need to know how to use a camera, but they are not the things that will make you a good photographer. Actually getting out and doing the photography, that's what will make you a good photographer. Here's a saying that I like to repeat often on my channel. The difference between somebody who knows how to use a camera and somebody who is a good photographer is somebody who knows how to use what they've learned. There are lots of people who can sit for hours and watch YouTube tutorials and they will know how to use a camera. They probably won't be able to take a good photo though, because they need to get out and actually use what they've learned. It's the taking of those thousands and thousands of really bad photos that means that you can actually put into practice what you have learned. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, is to get out there and take a lot of photos. I'll see you next time.